welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm McKelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 59 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today, we'll be discussing chapter 58 of A Game of Thrones, that's Ned 15.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully, we're going to provide you with some entertainment while we do it.
We will summarise what has happened, discuss our thoughts on it to provide some useful background, compare it to the TV show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some reader mail. If you're not reading along with us, you'll find the show notes are very helpful, so check those out.
Indeed.
How are you, sir?
I'm alright. I got some technical glitches going on over here. I can only hear Simon out of one ear, and it seems to keep switching back and forth which ear it is, so... A little bit distracting, but I would try not to let it affect me. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, it's for listeners from the future, it's September 2020, so we're still in sort of COVID lockdown.
Yep.
I have a story of pain and anguish. I always know I know you like those. And actually, it circles back to a story you told the other day.
Okay.
So, you actually can look. No, our listeners can't look, but you can look behind me and see that I've rearranged this room.
Oh yeah,
the bed is turned.
Yes. Oh,
it's because Carson brought the succulents in because it's getting cold.
I see them.
So they needed some room by the window, so I had to rearrange the whole room. So
okay.
I was surveying the room. I wasn't actually rearranging it. I was just surveying the room. And my tablet, which is not like as big as an iPad, but it's about halfway between a phone and an iPad, I was standing barefoot, just surveying the room, not moving, literally still.
Uh-oh.
And the tablet fell off a table. And I know you know this actually because I've complained about it before. I have sort of semi-arthritic toes from all the soccer I play.
Yes, right.
My left big toe is particularly sore all the time.
Yeah.
And this tablet landed edge first right on my left big toe. Man, I was in pain. So I surveyed the room, like cursing my rotten luck, and I decided I was going to turn the bed around because that would create the room that was required for the plants to live in here.
Sure.
So I turned the bed around, forgetting that under the bed I keep a stash of wooden planks from when we got some hardwood flooring. We got a whole box of wooden slats, and they are as long as the bed is long.
Okay.
So when I turned the bed around, they stuck out. So I had to turn them too.
Uh-huh.
But by this point, I got the bed turned around. So the easiest way to fix this problem was to lift the bed and move the planks underneath.
Right.
But that was too difficult for me. So I got my son to come and help me.
Yeah.
So the box of wood is low. It's only like 3 or 4 inches high. But it had some loose planks on top of it.
Yep, loose
so
things.
So I bent down. I lift the bed. My son kicked the box, which moved, but the planks didn't move. They turned sideways and fell edge on to my big toe.
Your left big toe?
The same one that I'd been hit like 3 minutes earlier. I was on the bed. I could see stars.
Oh, he can't blame this one on Stella.
The pain. I know, it kind of reminded me of that. God, it hurt.
Oh,
I should have been wearing like big work boots or something.
Yeah, some steel-toed boots. Crap. Well, sorry to hear about your pain and misfortune. Any idea why it was that your tab fell off of the table it was on?
Not a clue. It was precarious, I'll give it that. And I had it's just a little side table that it was on, and I just moved it.
Okay.
And it was sort of balanced on a pile of books. So, I mean, the whole thing was pretty precarious. I am not putting it down to the supernatural.
All right. No ghosts of Harrenhal in the McGrother household.
But, I mean, I looked at it. It seemed steady. I turned my head and I looked at the bed. And then it leapt off.
Waited till you weren't looking. Convenient.
Exactly.
Very convenient.
So...
Well, that's no fun. Never fun. Yeah, it wasn't. There was a time when even the bed sheet touching your big toe would send you through excruciating
Oh, that's
pain.
when I had the plantar fasciitis.
Yes.
That was... Oh, no, you're right. I did have problems with the bed sheet touching my toe. But my bed sheet and foot problems with plantar fasciitis. I found that I was getting plantar fasciitis, which is a sort of problem on the sole of your foot, and it was because we have a cleaning lady who I'm. That makes me sound like I'm some sort of wealthy sort of rich person who has a cleaning lady. It's kind of our one indulgence in life. We have a lady who comes and cleans every 2 weeks, and she's very, very nice. And she's from Eastern Europe, and she tucks my bed in like an Eastern European would. I mean, like, it is in tight. And so I got plantar fasciitis, and I started to research it a little bit, and I discovered that that's a contributing factor. Having tight because when you're in bed, your feet are pulled down and they can't straighten back up again, you see. So I untucked my bed, and immediately, like within a days, my plantar fasciitis went away.
Wow. Okay. Well, you see, you not only get A Song of Ice and Fire info here, you also get medical advice. So if you're developing plantar fasciitis,
please seek a medical professional. Don't listen to us.
Simon's not that kind of doctor, but he'll play one on this podcast.
All right. Well, we should get a move on.
Yeah, I guess.
Unless you've got a story to rival mine.
I do not. No, nothing. Nothing really worth talking about that I can think of off the top of my head. So we'll just get on with the recap we got here.
Yeah. So last time we saw Ned, he was being outmaneuvered by Peter Baelish, Cersei Lannister, and Janos Slynt. His bid to usurp the throne from Joffrey backfired badly, and he was being held at knife point by Peter Baelish. Since then, we've learned that he is alive, but in the dungeons, courtesy of Sansa's entreaty, he only has to confess his crimes and bend the knee to receive Joffrey's mercy. Kelly, why don't we give them the summary?
Joffrey's mercy.
Shaking your head won't make it through to the audio podcast, just FYI.
The term Joffrey and mercy, I'm not sure those two things go together very well. I have to remember, I'm using a different computer because my Surface Pro is having some issues, and this is not touchscreen, so me trying to push the screen up is doing very little to advance the page here. Anyway.
That is a first world problem you've got there, my friend.
It is indeed. It also, I think, is the reason I can only hear you out of my left ear at the moment. On with the summary. Okay, so Ned's tossed into a pitch-black dungeon, grimly thinking that when the king dies, the hand gets buried. He knows he's lost, and only his starkness keeps his tears at bay. His hopes lie in the hands of others now. The Baratheon brothers will be raising armies at Dragonstone and Storm's End. Cat will surely rouse the north, and the Vale and the Riverlands will most definitely join her. He also holds out hope for the group he sent to arrest Rhaegar Clegane, including the remainder of his household guard.
He starts to converse with Robert's ghost, remembering his friend in his prime when he took the throne. The king berates Ned for his stiff neck, but then transforms into Peter Baelish. A jailer brings long overdue water, but no news or even words. Ned relives the fabled tourney at Harrenhal, where the wheels of the rebellion were first set in motion.
He was 18. It was the year of the false spring. Robert was magnificent and berserk in the melee. Jaime Lannister took his Kingsguard vows, but when the jousting started, it was all about Rhaegar Targaryen. He defeated Brandon Stark, Bronn Jon Royce, and even Sir Arthur Dayne, the sword, but maybe not the lance, of the morning.
In the final tilt, the Crown Prince unseated Sir Barristan Selmy. But all smiles died as the prince rode past his wife, Elia Martell, with the champion's crown. Instead, he dipped his lance and let the crown of blue roses slide into Lyanna Stark's lap. Ned reached out to hold the crown, but the flowers hid the thorns. Again he hears Lyanna's plea, "Promise me," from her bed of blood.
Days pass. Water is brought, but no food. Finally, the monotony is broken by a visit from Lord Varys. The eunuch provides Ned with updates that we already know. Sansa's captured. Arya's in the wind. Tyrion's escaped from Cat. Ned despairs and accuses Varys of not helping him in the throne room. Of course, Varys points out the folly of such an action. Ned asks if he can help him escape, and Varys says he could, but he won't. It only lead to questions that would lead back to him. Instead, Ned asks if he'll take a message, and Varys says he will if the message suits his own ends, which is peace in the realm.
Varys tells Ned that the Queen will visit. She's afraid of the Baratheon brothers. She needs Ned to denounce them, to end the war in the Riverlands so that she can cement her son's position. Ned, being Ned, of course, says he cannot do any of that, but Varys reminds Ned of Sansa's vulnerable position. His next visitor will either bring him cheese and bread or Sansa's head. It's really up to Ned to decide.
He could really use some bread, or he's going to end up dead.
There was lots of rhyming in
yes,
that. There was. Sansa will be dead if she loses her head, but Ned could get some bread. All right. So the whole chapter is a bit of a recap of things we already know. I guess we do learn of Cersei's continued worries about losing the throne to the Baratheons, which I guess for her the important thing is that her family's armies arrive before the
Baratheon families.
If the Baratheons actually have armies. I mean, we're not sure of that yet. We haven't heard anything. I mean, they have loyalists, but do they constitute an army?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't know. But yeah, that's her biggest concern, no doubt. But the chapter starts, aside from him describing the cell that he's stuck in, starts with him ruminating over him having played the Game of Thrones and losing pretty terribly too, and it's cost him his men's lives. And it's just so Ned-like to think of his men first. You know, that was his first thought: is I played the Game of Thrones, I lost, and my men paid for it in their blood. Very Ned thing.
But Varys is right. If he doesn't change his inflexibility, he's going to join them. It won't be just them; it'll be him too.
Yes. Solid point. That seems like the end result of this plan that he's been on here.
He curses all of the people that betrayed him. So Littlefinger, Janos Slynt, the Gold Cloaks, Queen Cersei. I mean, hers wasn't a betrayal. She was always planning to do that.
Yeah.
Jaime Lannister, Varys, Grand Maester Pycelle, even Barristan Selmy and Renly, who he doesn't really blame because they think he feels like he's on the same side as them, but neither of them stood by him when he needed them. Yeah,
that's what he said, that Renly, the king's own blood, ran when he was needed. But, I mean, Renly did offer to help with a plan with what seemed like a much higher success rate, or probability anyway, than the one Ned went with.
Although, of course, I mean, if you remember what Renly's plan was, it was to take possession of Joffrey, right? And
yeah, get the kids in custody and Cersei will fall into line, yeah.
Right, and then the longer term plan was to raise Joffrey to try and make him a decent king, and if they could do that, ensconce him as king. If they couldn't do that, denounce him as being a bastard, and reinsert Stannis at that point.
Yeah, that's kind of a mashup of Renly's plan and Littlefinger's plan. I don't think Renly.
Oh, is it? I'm sorry.
I don't think Renly got as far. I don't think his plan went as far as raising Joffrey. That was kind of Littlefinger's idea.
But the thing is, thinking back on it now, given that Baelish and Cersei were able to secure the Gold Cloaks, which are by far the biggest force within the city,
yeah,
I'm not sure Renly's plan would have worked, and there'd be no coming back from that.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, you can apologize for saying you're not the king, but for kidnapping the king,
that's true. You know, it's a whole other level, I guess. Although I guess if Ned is ratified or whatever as the king regent, then he would be the ultimate authority in the city anyway. That's the piece he was missing.
But that was true to a certain extent, and the Gold Cloak still turned on him because they were paid to.
Yeah.
And they were paid to by Queen Cersei, who had a pretty good claim to their loyalty. She could have made that same argument if Ned had truly been ensconced as the king regent.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. We never got there, so it's like we don't know how much power the king regent has if the Dowager Queen and the young king want to go move against him. Who's the power goes with numbers, and the numbers were the Gold Cloaks, and they went with the Lannisters. So you're right; it might not have mattered if he had been ensconced as King Regent or not.
But maybe the danger to Joffrey would have prevented her from doing it.
Yes,
maybe that's the hope.
If Ned would have been able to successfully threaten harm to a child, I'm not sure anybody would have believed that he would actually do them harm.
Well, the thing about that is, logically, you wouldn't believe it, but as the mother of the child, you'd be inclined to.
Yeah. You make a solid point. So Ned, he kind of sleeps and wakes. He says sometimes he doesn't know which is which, and he opens his eyes, closes his eyes, it doesn't matter because it's complete darkness. But while he slept, he dreamt of blood and broken promises. And I was thinking about both, actually, but I was thinking about broken promises, and I wondered what specific broken promises he was referring to, sorry. And I thought of, maybe Brandon, his brother Brandon, and his father Rickard, maybe they had promised to return home and never did. Obviously, his honoring his vow to Cat was broken when he fathered Jon Snow, and then also he pledged to Robert to take care of his legitimately fathered children as if they were his own, and obviously he's not going to be able to do that stuck in a dungeon. So
yeah,
because we've heard a lot about the promise he made to Lyanna. We don't know what it is, but he keeps referring to it. But we had not heard that it was broken, this promise.
Right. I mean, that's an interesting thought. So that's the first we've heard that promise, which she extracted from him, may have been broken. Given that it's Ned, I would assume it hasn't been broken. But just an alternative idea here. Maybe he's thinking of Rhaegar's broken promise. Rhaegar presumably made some promise to Elia Martell, which he broke when he handed that crown to Lyanna Stark.
Yeah, hadn't thought of that.
So not necessarily his own broken promises, but the promises that got broken, which led to the turmoil.
Yep. Yeah, good point. I hadn't thought about that. But then I was thinking about the blood part as well, and he often, including in this chapter, refers to Lyanna being in a bed of blood, and that could be literal, or it could be a metaphor. She died, so she could have been in the bed of blood when she died. Or I was thinking maybe it could be a reference to the war, Robert's Rebellion that was started basically on her behalf.
He's said it enough times and with enough specificity that I don't think it's purely metaphorical. It sounds real, but it then does conjure the question of how did she die?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody who was guarding her would have wounded her.
Right.
Did she get some kind of disease that made her cough blood up so she was...
Yeah, right. That we still don't know.
Yeah. So Ned still has some hopes. He hopes that Robert's brothers are out there raising armies at Dragonstone and Storm's End.
It does seem like Stannis is up to something, but even Varys in this chapter says nobody knows what Stannis is up to on Dragonstone, but I betcha he's collecting more swords than seashells, so it seems like he is... Everybody assumes he's amassing troops, and if you recall, Tywin, when he was talking to Tyrion and his brother Kevin Lannister, was in quite the hurry to wrap up his beef with Robb Stark and his army in order to turn his attention to Stannis. So... Yeah.
I wonder, I mean... It's difficult to launch an attack across water.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many swords he doesn't appear to have drawn any major families to his cause, as far as we know.
We don't know much about what's going on in the Stormlands. Maybe as he's a Baratheon, he's getting all his people from the Stormlands.
So rather than a marine invasion of King's Landing from Dragonstone, he could just sail to Storm's End, meet up with the brunt of his army who were gathered there from the mainland.
Yeah.
And march on King's Landing from there. Yeah, that's true.
Maybe. And of course, we have no word of Renly since it was announced that he left in the night, the night that Robert died. Now, one thing we haven't talked about is whether Renly and Stannis have a plan together that they could be meeting up to. Maybe Renly has gone to the Reach to get troops, and Stannis is pulling troops from the Stormlands, and they're going to join forces and take back the throne for the Baratheons.
Yeah, but what's it? We talked about this, I think, last time even, that we don't know whether Renly knows the big secret about Joffrey's parentage, right?
Yeah.
But maybe he did all along. Maybe just before Stannis fled King's Landing, he said, hey, you stick around and keep a straight face, but that kid ain't your nephew. Which then might go to some of the ways that we saw Renly treating him.
Could be. Yeah, we did question what his beef was with Joffrey, so we've gotten no indication that he knows, but it's possible he's just a better poker player.
Which could then lead to the suggestion that there's some long-term planning between Renly and Stannis.
Yeah.
That you stay here, keep your ear to the ground, send me messages, and then when the time comes, we'll come together in a big army and invade. It's plausible.
Agreed.
It's plausible. So Ned also hopes that Alan and Harwin and the rest of the Stark Guard that were out dealing with Gregor Clegane successfully behead the 9-foot-tall mountain and then come riding back to free him from the dungeon.
Yes, that's the plan.
Yeah, so if Robb Stark's intel is right, they're already dead. And if Tywin Lannister's intel is right, they are still actively on their mission, attacking the Lannister forces from the south.
Yes.
To like a flea attacking a dog, I would think.
I guess so. One little tiny bite at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't think they're headed back to either of those two options. Doesn't have them coming back to help Ned out anytime soon. And I'm not sure if they did that they would be able to do much. Anyway, I don't know how. There was 20 of them. How are they going to get inside the Red Keep into the dungeons?
Yeah, and plus they're on a mission. They're on a mission that they were sent to do, and apparently they're sticking to that mission.
Right.
And who's gonna give them new orders? Really?
Yeah. Until they accomplish that mission.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's also hoping that Cat will raise the North, and that the lords of River, Mountain, and Vale will join her and join forces and come smash him free, I guess. And the River Lords have mostly fallen or are besieged. And the Lord...
But they are fighting the Lannisters.
Yes, they are. The Lords of Mountain and Vale,
they're not going to be any help.
Don't hold your breath on that one, Ned.
Yeah. Unless we can convince the Lannisters to go to the Vale to fight.
Yes. Unless the fight is taken to them, at least at the moment. Lysa Arryn seemed awfully unstable, so you can't say for sure that she will stick to this forever, but it seemed that she was not going to get involved. So,
Ned next thinks of the infamous tourney at Harrenhal, which was about 18 years ago, is that right?
It's 281, and this is 298. So
298, 17 years ago. So, Jaime... a lot of things happen. I mean, Jaime taking his Kingsguard vows is pretty consequential, partly because he was heir to Casterly Rock.
Exactly. Yes.
But when you take the Kingsguard vows, you give that up.
Yes. Of all the jerk moves that Aerys made toward his so-called friend Tywin, which we talked about a bunch last Tyrion chapter, this might have been the biggest jerk move of them all. Because, yeah.
I wonder if Tyrion did a little dance. Like, suddenly I'm number 2 in line.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
and
big...
then when Cersei got married to the king, he was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one there, because he, of all the realm, he could have picked anyone, and he picked the only logical heir to Casterly Rock in Tywin's mind. His heir, his firstborn son that he's been molding after himself, he then poached at 15 to become a member of the Kingsguard. But of course,
fast forward to now, you can imagine that Tywin and Joffrey, as Hand and King, could release him from that vow if they chose to, and he's pretty flexible with the vow anyway.
True. Yep. It's not so much a vow as just a motto, really.
Yeah. Like a fortune cookie.
Yes. But of course, the apple not falling very far from the tree here, Rhaegar is about to pull an even bigger jerk move in front of his wife in a few minutes here.
Yeah. So they mentioned that Ned mentions that Rhaegar looked magnificent in his black armor with the rubies in the strip of the dragon sigil, which of course is what he wore when he died at the Ruby Ford.
Yeah,
which I think was just called the Ford
until then
his rubies were scattered there.
Yes. While all this was happening, they were having a lot of fun and laughing, and Robert was laughing with Jon Arryn, and he refers to Old Lord Hunter, who is actually Eon Hunter, which you may remember from the chapter when Tyrion and Cat were in the Vale. He was the old gouty lord who offered to champion Lysa against Tyrion. And then in the next chapter, the duel chapter between Bronn and Ser Vardis Egan, he was one of the ones mansplaining to Cat about how Ser Vardis was going to beat Bronn because he was a knight and Bronn was a sellsword. So that's the old Lord Hunter that he was referring to. And that was, 17 years ago. So he's 17 years older now. So
right.
Maybe less gouty back then, I guess.
Yeah.
Then comes the big jerk move.
Yeah.
By Rhaegar.
Yeah, take it.
He wins and the crowd is cheering, I'm sure, and he has his little crown of roses, of blue winter roses, and he spurs his horse past his own wife, Elia Martell, and in front of his wife and everyone watching, he dips his lance and puts the blue roses for the Queen of Love and Beauty in Lyanna Stark's lap. So, yeah, that's a tough one, man. Oof. Yeah. That's...
Well, my question about that is, what was Lyanna's reaction?
Yeah.
Was she just like, oh God, another one, or something like that? Was she like, why is it the married men who are into me? Or was she like Sansa would have been? Was she like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God,
I'm the Queen of Love and Beauty?
Exactly. It's hard to know. I mean, we don't know much about Lyanna because she died so young.
We know that Ned told Arya that Arya reminds him a lot of her, that Lyanna had a wildness in her that Arya has. So it seems like she might be cut more out of the Arya cloth than the Sansa cloth.
Interesting. So she might have like taken it and like frisbeed it onto Elia Martell's head or something. Yeah. So Ned in this recap does not mention Lyanna's reaction, but he does say that all the smiles died.
Yeah.
So nobody was happy with this, apart from Rhaegar. Apparently, he was blissfully unaware. Like, woohoo! Look at me.
Oh man, that
in his mind he could hear the cheering.
It takes some serious lack of awareness to not notice. That's not going to go over very well. But I guess he wasn't concerned. He's the crown prince. He can do what he pleases.
Targaryens were the bosses. They could.
So Ned's clinging to. So he has this flashback of the tournament, and then it snaps back. Like I said, he goes back and forth between dreaming and waking, and in one of his waking moments, he's clinging to the belief that Cersei dare not kill him because Cat has Tyrion. Well, you see, the thing is this.
That's what I'm saying. This whole chapter was just stuff we already knew.
Right. It was basically just watching Ned's reaction as he gets worse and worse news.
Varys reading the book to Ned.
Yes.
Ned's like, no, this is not going well.
No, don't go to Lysa. Yeah.
So Varys was disguised as a grizzled, wine-soaked jailer, stubble and all. I have a question about that. If you are castrated prior to puberty, would you grow stubble?
I don't think
Is
he
that
can.
related?
I think it must have been.
Oh, so it's just a disguise.
Yes.
It wasn't like he grew his stubble. Oh, I see.
If you remember, he's pretty good at this stuff. He was the guy who visited Gendry. He was the guy that Arya saw in the dungeon. Neither of them were clearly Varys. He was well disguised. He was the guy that came to Ned the first night of the tourney when he told him about Cersei kind of goading Robert into participating in the melee. And each time there was a very different description of the man, except for one term. They all called him stout, and he calls him stout in this chapter as well. So,
can I just say that none of them really knew Varys?
Yeah.
He could really have just wandered out exactly dressed as Varys, with the one exception of Ned, who did. So take off your purple silk and wear a brown coat.
Right.
And it would be that's all he's really done here, just FYI.
Apparently, he mentions here in this chapter that he traveled with a mummers troupe when he was young, as he says, before he was cut in Essos. So I guess that's where he learned to do all these disguises and such.
Right.
And then he one of the first things he says to Ned is, "I trust you realize you're a dead man, Lord Eddard." But then he spends the rest of the chapter explaining how he's not necessarily a dead man if he doesn't want to be.
I think it's a conversational gambit to get him focused,
Yeah.
Unless you're going to listen.
Right. Exactly. I think what he's meaning is if you continue down the path that you're on, you're a dead man.
Yeah.
But if you listen to me, you might have a chance to live.
Yeah, so Ned asks Varys what his agenda is, and Varys is clear about it. He says peace. Peace in the realm is what I care about. He was the only person in King's Landing who was desperate to keep Robert Baratheon alive.
Yeah.
His enemies and his friends were doing nothing to help him, but Varys was.
Yeah, he said
several times he's talked about the fact that he took steps to keep Robert alive.
Yeah. He said he's protected him from his enemies, but he was unable to protect him from his friends. And he's referring to Ned here. And then he says, "What on earth possessed you to tell Cersei about you learning the secret of Joffrey's parentage?" And of course, Ned says it was mercy. And Varys says, "Oh, I forgot. You're an honorable man. It's so rare that I come across such an honorable man. And as I see you sitting here dying in this dungeon, I am reminded as to why it's so rare that I see such an honorable man."
Yeah. So Varys brings Ned some wine, which is the first non-water he's had since he's been in prison. Ned is slightly nervous that it might be poisoned, asking if it's the poisoned wine that he gave to Robert.
And he says, "You wound me, Lord Stark," until he takes a drink of the wine. He had explained why he was actually he was the one trying to keep Robert alive. And so then Ned asks if he questioned Lancel about the wine, because if you recall, it was Varys who planted the idea of who gave the wine to Robert outside of the king's chambers after Ned had visited Robert when he came back from his hunt and Robert was clearly dying. His line went something like, he was talking to Barristan. Barristan said it was Lancel who gave him the wine, and he said, "Only one skin? Hunting is such thirsty work." And then he said, "Lancel is a dutiful boy to make sure the king does not lack for refreshment." So it was him who kind of sparked the idea that could this have been an issue with too much wine or something wrong with the wine.
Yeah, and we also learned that the Queen is the one who gave Lancel the wine.
Yeah, he admits it in this chapter. He says, "Did you ask Lancel?"
Right.
And he said, "Yeah, it was the Queen that gave it to him." Said it was his favorite vintage.
Right. So maybe stronger than he was anticipating, so he was drunker than he thought he was, etc., etc.
Plus, probably more. He probably wasn't counting how many skins of wine he actually had.
So the thinking being, hunts are dangerous. If you get him drunk enough, he'll die one way. We can make sure he has a fatal accident one way or another.
Yep, that's what Varys says. He says the hunter's life is perilous. He could have fallen from a horse. He could have been bitten by a wood adder. A stray arrow could have hit him. They were going to get him one way or the other.
So then Varys says, there's an interesting point here, because a lot of this feels like, like he said, I couldn't protect him from his friends. This is Ned's fault for confronting Cersei with what he knew.
Yeah.
But then Varys does say she wasn't going to wait very long anyway. This might have tipped her over the edge, but she was already beginning to worry about Stannis Baratheon.
Yeah.
And his claim and his potentially growing army and the potential for his secret to spread through the realm and therefore gain traction. So she needed Joffrey on the throne sooner rather than later.
Exactly. She needed to get rid of Robert so she could deal with his brothers. You remove the brothers, you got no real legitimate claim left to the throne, and who's really going to care at that point anyway? If there's no Baratheons left, then Joff would be the
right.
Who's left to ask questions?
Yeah, I mean, the closest you would have would be Gendry. Gendry would be the closest you'd have to an alternative claim.
Yeah, nobody knows he's exists.
No, or even Maya Stone.
Right? Yeah, she's the oldest of the.
That person, Maya Stone, has no chance against an enthroned Joffrey.
Exactly.
Baratheon / Lannister. Yeah.
And like I said, if all the Baratheons are dead, who's around who's caring anymore about whether Joffrey is legit or not?
Well, Ned would.
Yes, he would.
Ned would literally move on to Maya Stone at that point, yes. For sure. So Varys tells Ned that he should have heeded Littlefinger's advice to support Joffrey's succession. Ned is surprised that Varys even knows about that conversation, but Varys is the Lord of Whisperers, so he knows.
Exactly. So to refresh your mind on that plan, Baelish argued against Stannis. He said he's iron-hard and will fire the entire small council, which, of course, as we said at the time, Ned really could care less about that, but also that Casterly Rock will rise against Stannis in favor of Joffrey's claim, and that Stannis' unforgiving nature will drive other families to the Lannisters' cause. On the flip side, if Ned assumes the regency, marries his children to Cersei's children, shapes Joffrey into a semblance of decency, or if not, if that doesn't work out, then he can dispose of Stannis, elevate Renly to the throne, reveal Cersei's secret that Joff is not Robert's.
Yeah. So that plan of Littlefinger's is pretty good, and could conceivably keep peace in the realm for a longer period of time. And if you remember, one of the things we have heard Varys say is that he's looking for peace to stabilize the realm, with potentially the idea of getting a Targaryen back on the throne.
Maybe, yeah, that's what it seems like.
This might lead to that. That's a very complicated thing, though, because, I mean, the turmoil that the realm is now in feels like it's more fertile ground for Targaryens to come back, personally.
Yeah.
But Varys seemed to think that it would be better served this way. This certainly, that Littlefinger plan certainly does feel like a good holding pattern to get into if you want some big change to come later on.
Yeah, right, because it just keeps the status quo for the time being.
So instead of overhearing the plan that Baelish shared with Ned, perhaps Varys planted the plan.
Exactly.
With Baelish.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, they both should have known that Ned was way too rigid to be so duplicitous, so...
Yeah. If you want a plan involving Ned, you need to go to him and say, I want you to be rigid and not change anything that you would normally do.
Exactly. That's your only chance of winning.
Yeah.
But Varys does say that Cersei is scared of Ned, but she has other bigger fears. And then he kind of goes through them. Jaime's fighting the River Lords, and so far he's got the upper hand. Unless he loses his hostage, Edmure Tully, the way that Cat did her hostage Tyrion, he's in a pretty good spot here. You know,
Yeah. She's worried about Lysa Arryn, although she shouldn't be.
Right. She doesn't know how little she has to worry about Lysa Arryn.
True.
And Varys...
But she does know that Lysa hates her.
Yes, exactly. Varys says there's no love lost between Cersei and Lysa. And if you recall way back to the second Cat chapter, it was Lysa who helped kick off a lot of this stuff by accusing Cersei of being the one that killed Jon Arryn in the gibberish note that Cat was in such a hurry to burn.
My favorite sort of background radiation part of this story is always the Martells brooding down in Dorne about the murder of Elia and her children.
Yeah.
Their daughter was going to be queen, and their her children were going to be the king, going to be the next king, and they got murdered horribly by Rhaegar Clegane, who was and remains a Lannister lord.
Yep. That's definitely good reasons to be bitter about the Lannisters. The Lannisters.
And if you're Cersei Lannister and your father and brother are fighting a war, perhaps to the last man in the Riverlands, then that army of Dawn might be like, well, now we could go play a visit to King's Landing.
When the cat is away, we shall play. Yeah, exactly. They're the Lannister armies are north of King's Landing, and Dorne is south of King's Landing. So,
right, which of course, this goes to why Tywin is really wants to get this done quickly. Because if the Baratheon brothers really could get an army together, King's Landing is relatively defenseless.
Yeah,
it's got the gold cloaks, but the gold cloaks, they're not soldiers per se.
Right, they're not fighting knights and stuff.
Exactly. They're police force.
Yeah.
They break up drunken squabbles in the street.
Yeah.
If a trained army were to arrive on the doorstep, this could be bad for Cersei.
Yeah. But, of course, she's also worried about Robb marching south with a northern army. But, of course, he has to get past Tywin and Jaime first.
Yeah. But, to her fear, he only has to tie them up for 6 months.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. And so that's what Varys concludes. The thing that makes her lose the most sleep is the Baratheon brothers. And Stannis in particular, and the fact that deep down, she knows his claim is true.
Yeah. And he says that Stannis is known for being an excellent battle commander and also for having no mercy. Which, we were talking, I think it was our 50th episode, we had gotten a question about the differences between Ned and Stannis, and I think that's one right there. I don't think that Stannis would likely have gone to Cersei to protect her children.
Where was this when we were recording that question? No, you're absolutely right. That is a very good difference, and I'm sure that's the truth. That Stannis would have sprung it on her and let the four of them go to the headsman. Yeah,
and we don't know him yet. We've yet to meet this character, Stannis Baratheon, but what we do know, he seems to be, as Varys said, have no mercy. He also seems to be incredibly righteous. If you recall, before the Harrenhal Tourney, they were having a small council meeting, and it came up that Stannis tried to ban brothels. So, he's a pretty righteous guy.
Yeah. So Varys says that Cersei cares more about Joffrey than herself. That all these fears are really for her son, not for herself.
Right.
Which is a little bit humanizing.
Yeah.
She gets a bad rap, but caring more about your child than yourself is a decent thing. So
absolutely.
Ned doesn't understand how he can be expected to serve the woman who murdered the king, butchered his men, and crippled his son. Yeah, that's the catalogue of crimes that would be hard to overlook.
Tough ask right there. Tough ask, no doubt.
But the one thing I would say that list does tell you is that she would not shirk from killing your daughter.
Exactly. Yes.
So if you want that list to stay as short as it is, you might want to bend the knee.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ned, so Varys says, "I don't want you to serve the queen. I want you to serve the realm, and to do so, confess your treason, command Robb to lay down his sword, pronounce Joff the heir, and denounce the Baratheon brothers." A lot of that goes along with what Littlefinger had told him. Choosing Stannis means the realm will bleed. He specifically said that when Littlefinger was making his appeal to Ned to go with his plan. If you choose Stannis, the realm will bleed. But at the time, honor-bound Ned couldn't cope with lying for the good of the realm. So he chose not to lie, and it has obviously hurt the realm. There's already been much bleeding because he couldn't lie about who the rightful heir was.
Yeah, and of course he's still bitter about their late arrival to Robert's cause in Robert's Rebellion.
The Lannisters, you mean?
They were the Lannisters. Yeah. They were late on the scene, and Ned still holds that against them.
Right.
Never has quite trusted them, and he wants their family to fall from grace. He'd be happy to see that just for that. The fact that he's got something now is I'm sure a very non-Stark part of him is maliciously thrilled by this.
Yes, exactly. He's like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, exactly. So if he plays Cersei's game, he'll get the chance to go to the wall, perhaps, with Jon and Benjen. Although, again, I actually think that, theoretically, if he did all those things, she'd let him take back the helm at Winterfell.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? I mean, you're still... You're it's enough of a punishment that he's had to do all that, and now he goes back like a whipped cur to the north.
Maybe.
And he can lick his wounds all he wants. He's confirmed her as, Joffrey as king. And she has no more to fear from him.
Yeah, I think if he were to do those things, if he were to do the things that Varys asks him to do here, I think Ned, being as honorable as he is, would stick by it. He wouldn't then get freed, go north, gather up all his army, and turn around and come back down and,
That's a tricky one, though, because he will have consciously lied.
Yes, right.
So then do you stick by your conscious lie, or do you betray the promise you're implicitly making by making that lie?
Yeah, exactly.
He'll be torn.
Yes.
He'll be torn on that one.
No doubt Ned would be. But he says that when Varys says you can go to the wall and live out your days with your brother Benjen and your baseborn son Jon, he says that Jon, thinking of Jon, gives him a sense of deep shame and sorrow. And I was thinking about what exactly he means by that. I wondered if it was his breaking his vows to Cat, that is, that created Jon, that is bringing the sorrow, or maybe how he let Cat treat Jon. He had to have been aware at some level how Cat was treating him, or maybe that he let him go to the wall in the first place. When Cat wanted Ned to go south to King's Landing with the king, they were discussing what to do with Jon, and Ned said, "I thought he could stay here and help Robb be a lord," and Cat's like, he's not staying here, and that's when the idea of going to the wall. So he didn't originally voice this plan to get for him to go to the wall. So maybe he feels bad that he allowed his 15-year-old to go live his life as a member of the Night's Watch.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of those things. I mean, you've got to feel like you failed him pretty badly, because he had a pretty miserable childhood.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking.
Right, relatively speaking. Exactly.
Amongst Ned's children. And now he's at the wall and he's going to potentially lose his father here. And, yeah, it's pretty... If you think of it, from thousands of miles away, you've got to think to yourself, I've not done right by Jon.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's, yeah. I think it's a combo of all the things that we just mentioned.
Yeah. So Ned wonders if Varys is in league with Littlefinger. He wed on Wednesday. He be the goat of Kohor. I don't know what that means.
So Ned asks Varys if he's in league with Littlefinger. On Wednesday, he be the goat of Kohor. Oh, that's awesome. I try to fit things on one line. That's why there's a lot of little stuff like that. I'm hoping it'll make sense when we read it. I don't like when things hang over by one line, like how Skulls hangs over down there. I try to bring those up. So Ned asks Varys...
Oh, that's right. I would sooner wed the black goat of Kohor.
Exactly.
Oh, very nice.
So Ned asks Varys if he's in league with Littlefinger, and Varys scoffs at it and says he would rather wed the black goat of Kohor, which I will explain what that is in the background section. But instead, no, he just feeds him choice whispers, and he lets Littlefinger think that Varys is his man. And if you think of some of the things that Varys has told Littlefinger, he told Littlefinger about Ned being named King Regent. Remember, Littlefinger came into Ned's chamber and said, I hear congratulations are in order. And Ned said, the king is dying. What are you talking about? And he said, well, I've heard you've been named King Regent. And he said, where'd you get that? And he said, oh, well, Varys had a suspicion he told me about, and you've just confirmed it. And Ned was like, bah! But then he also told Littlefinger about Cat being in King's Landing when she came to see about the dagger. So.
Oh, right, that's right. Varys did tell him that. Yeah.
He does tell him things, and he feels like he's letting Littlefinger think he's his man, but really he's not. And he also lets Cersei think that he is her man. And Ned says, and you let me think you were my man. So the spy does what the spy does, I guess. It's everybody think he's on their side.
I mean that. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you've got to be. I've said this before. As the Master of Whispers, you've got to be ambiguous, at least, with where your loyalties lie. You've just got to gather the information and give it out. And I think it's reasonable to say, especially in a time of turmoil like this, that your loyalty is to the realm. You'll give this information to whoever you think will do the best for the realm.
Yeah, right.
And that's feels like he's doing his job at that point, whatever his motivations might be, and they are not completely clear yet.
Yeah, he makes for an interesting character, that's for sure, with not knowing where his allegiance lies.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Varys does bring up again the Martells and how they still brood on the death of Elia and the children, and he brings it up to say, look, again, you know that this woman can't be trusted, and they'll do anything, so Sansa's life is in genuine danger if you don't toe the line here.
Yeah, because Ned refuses Varys' offer. He says, you need to do these things to support the realm. And Ned says, if I did those things, if I said these things to Cersei, they'd be as hollow as an empty suit of armor. Varys says, tisk, 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 the queen's not going to be happy to hear those kind of things. And he said, I don't care. My life's not worth that much to me. I'm not going to lie to make Cersei happy. And Varys says, and how do you feel about Sansa's life? And that totally changes the tune of the conversation.
Yes, it would. Okay, so to background, again, Ned mentions the Tower of Joy to remind you that's where he found Lyanna Stark at the end of Robert's Rebellion. Just a background, a non-sort of Westeros background here. There's some suggestion that George Martin got this name, the Tower of Joy, from Arthurian legend.
Oh.
Lancelot's castle was called Joyous Gard, and his affair with Guinevere, he rescued her and brought her there.
Okay.
So it has sort of parallels to
a
certain extent with what's going on here.
Okay.
If you think of Lancelot as Rhaegar and Lyanna as Guinevere,
yeah.
But
right, I see it.
It's not quite the same.
Not quite, but I could see the connection. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I like it. So, like I said a little bit ago, Varys says he would rather wed the Black Goat of Kohor than be in league with Littlefinger, who he says is the second most devious person in Westeros. So the Black Goat of Kohor is a god in the city of Kohor, which is one of the free cities of Essos. The god demands a daily blood sacrifice, and the Kohoric usually sacrifice calves and horses at the Black Goat's altars. However, on holy days, it's condemned criminals who go beneath the knife of the god's priests, and in times of danger and crisis, it's said that the high nobles of the city offer their own children to placate the Black Goat, that he will defend their city. The city of Kohor is actually founded by worshippers of the Black Goat who are religious refugees from Valyria.
Very nice.
I don't really get the marriage thing, though. The Black Goat of Kohor. I didn't really get what he was implying by that, but okay.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like... Well, I don't know. I mean, he's got a lot of power, clearly.
Yeah, right.
So, comparison with the television show, this scene is kept pretty much verbatim. In actual fact, in the show, there are 2 or 3 scenes where Varys goes to visit Ned in the dungeon.
Oh.
So, he's a sort of semi-frequent visitor. We do not see any of Ned's flashback stuff at this point.
Okay.
So it's just him being sensorily deprived and then told what he needs to do by Varys.
Okay.
It's, as it was in the book, it was an opportunity to sort of like give a nice summary of the way the realm was devolving.
Just to keep everybody up on what's happening.
Yeah. Pedantry corner. Just lie, Ned, please. Okay, that's not pedantry. That's just me wishing that would happen.
I don't know if what I've got to say here is pedantry either. I think it's pedantry if I were Ned. If I were Ned, I'd be like, wait, what? So Varys says that Cersei gave Lancel the wineskin, but Lancel and the king were already off hunting when Ned told Cersei about knowing the secret about Joffrey's parentage. So how did she give the wine to Lancel? Through a messenger? So I was thinking maybe, if you recall, the day before Robert left for the hunt is the day he hit Cersei in the face when they came to visit Ned. And I wondered if maybe she put the wine plan into place then, and Varys is just wrong about his thought that it has to do with the mercy thing. It's just a coincidence.
So question about that. Yeah, just a question about that. Was there a messenger?
I don't know. I don't know.
I thought I had some vague recollection that there was a messenger, and maybe he was given like 3 big flagons of wine to carry to slow him down. But maybe I'm just making that up. I know the party split up, didn't it? The party split up, and some of them came home. But there was no. Yeah, I don't remember.
The messenger.
I think it's wishful thinking.
Ned sent a messenger. He sent one of the Royce sons, I can't remember which one off the top of my head, to tell Robert about Gregor being desummited. About,
Maybe Cersei took that opportunity. He's been out there a long time. I'm going to be very thirsty. Give him this.
You're right.
No, that's a good point. I mean, it may not be pedantry. It may just be wrong conclusions from Varys and Ned. But it also is. If that's the case, it's an interesting twist of the plot that she'd already decided Robert was for it, just for hitting her.
That's why I said if I were Ned, it would be pedantry. I would be like, wait. You're saying it's my mercy. He left before I even told him, so how could she have given Lancel the wine?
So to news and notes, the news and notes we have is so cryptic, I don't know what it means, so you're going to have to take it. It's like it's written in code.
It is.
I have no idea what this
told
says.
you I like to keep stuff on one line. So there are some legends and fantasy fiction birthdays in the past few days here. A solid lineup of fantasy fiction legends having birthdays. On Sunday, our dear George R.R. Martin had his birthday.
Turned how old?
I think he was born in 48, so you could probably do the math faster than I could.
72?
Yeah, oh boy. You better get working. You better finish these books quick.
That's exactly what I was getting to. Stop having birthdays. No,
that's even worse. So that was Sunday. On Tuesday, Frodo and Bilbo Baggins, September 22nd, have their birthday.
The characters.
The characters in the book were some of the.
They did share a birthday, didn't they? That's right. Wow, how about that?
The long-awaited party.
Oh, and it was your birthday.
And Monday,
I am so hopeless.
Monday was the fantasy fiction legend of all. Yours truly.
Happy birthday, my friend. I am sorry. I forgot as always because I don't pay any attention to anything. Any social media. I'm just hopeless. Now, I would like to tell our listeners, all of that was on one line.
I told you, I cram it all in there.
That's why I didn't know what the heck it was talking about. It was gibberish. Alright, so let's conclude. Yeah. Ned is hopefully not incapable of lying to save his own skin, but he is. I mean, he said it himself that he was, but hopefully his love for Sansa will ease his grip on.
Yeah, definitely. It adds another factor. He didn't seem to put his kids' safety into concern when he told Cersei about the the thing.
The problem is he just didn't have the imagination.
I guess so.
He didn't imagine that this would turn around so badly on him. That's part of his problem.
You're right.
Because again, I think he judges everyone by his own standards. Like he's like, Cersei has sinned, but she can atone for her sins by fleeing now. She will do so.
She will do. Why hasn't she fled yet? Yeah,
and Varys, he's a complex character, but he does seem to come across as honest, and he's clearly he's trying to help Ned for sure.
Yeah, right. He's certainly honest with Ned when Ned says, "Hey, can you spring me out of this joint?" And Varys says, "I could, but I won't." So he's certainly honest about that. But can he be taken entirely at his word? I don't think you can trust everything he says. He's got too many games going on to entirely trust everything he says. He's already said he let Cersei and Littlefinger think that he is each of their guy. So, but we did hear him talk with Illyrio of peace in the realm for the moment until their plan in Essos is ready. So
yeah. So, but that's the thing, isn't it? You see, when you profess, and I tend to believe him that he's trying to serve the realm. At some point, serving the realm means picking a side. Right. And so that's what he seems to have done with Illyrio Mopatis. He seems to have picked the side of the Targaryens, which seems an odd choice.
Yeah.
Given how Aerys was, would you want to go back?
Right.
Robert was bad. Robert was rotten as a king, but he wasn't evil in the same way Aerys was. He wasn't a lunatic. And they know why Aerys was a lunatic. It's because of the tight inbreeding, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
And who was Aerys' wife?
His sister.
His sister.
Right.
So Viserys and Daenerys are even more into bread than Aerys was.
Yeah. Now, of course,
they're one more layer.
They've not exactly spelled their plan out. It's just what the logical conclusion is at the moment based on the information that we have.
Right.
So. Yeah,
it certainly doesn't seem like they're picking a side amongst the factions in Westeros. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. It definitely doesn't seem that way. No.
They're not helping any of them.
Yeah. Varys tells Ned he's been given his life back if he'll just take it. If he just says what Cersei wants to hear, he can go live his life out on Castle Black. And this is not the first time. Multiple times people have said this is or was available to you if you had just taken it. Cersei said it when they were having their conversation in the Godswood. She said, "The throne was yours after Robert's rebellion. You could have just taken it, but you didn't." And Littlefinger, when he proposed Joffrey's succession plan, he said, it's yours. You could be the king regent. Just take it. But of course he didn't. So, will he now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Thinking back to that moment when he did have an opportunity to take the throne instead of Robert, I wonder, you can imagine Ned being very happy to let Robert take the throne.
Yeah.
It's hard, I think, to imagine the other way round. Because Robert would see himself as having won the rebellion.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't Robert's rebellion until he took the throne.
Yeah.
But he killed Rhaegar Targaryen. That's kind of the biggest moment in there.
Sure.
And so Ned ascending the throne might have led to further turmoil, might have driven a wedge between the two of them forevermore.
Yeah.
But he had no worse of a claim to the throne. I mean...
Yeah, Robert's claim was that his grandmother was a Targaryen. That's the legal claim that they use. But yeah.
But you see, I would watch... As Ned could argue, my family has been, kings of the North for thousands of years,
right.
Now it's time we took the whole realm.
Sure, yeah.
And brought a little order to you people, because winter's coming.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed it. We're grateful for you listeners, and we love to get feedback. And if you feel like leaving us a review, that would be great. We would appreciate both of those things. So please get in touch and please leave us a review.
Yep, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at @GhostHarrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.